Hello, welcome to, I almost said a different kind of church. That's what my background says. This is Just a Thought, which is from Sunshine Cathedral, which is a different kind of church. Got distracted there. Well, here we are again, Cindy Lippert. You were just telling me something. I bet other people need to know it. What was that?
Our book, The Complete Works of H. Emily Cady, the Contemporary English Version, is now available on Amazon.
Yay. We've required that book for some of our Samaritan courses, and people have had to get it from you directly, the book, but now they can get it on Amazon. So if they look...
Well, we discovered that somebody was selling it for $45 and calling it some kind of special edition because I had signed it.
Oh.
Well, I'm not dead, so right. I'll sign it for a heck of a lot less than 45. Yeah,
exactly. So and so it's the complete work, and it's in parentheses CEV or something like that, right? The complete work,
right? The Contemporary English Version.
Yes,
right.
And it's by Cindy and Richard Lippert. Is that the when people are looking it up?
Correct.
All right.
That's it.
And you know, a lot of the metaphysical pioneers, the New Thought pioneers, they're from the 19th century, early 20th century. The language is just a little archaic for those of us in the 21st century. And so the Lipperts kind of did a living Bible version of Cady. And so it's readable. It takes all of the archaic nature of the language out, so you can just get the principles. So it's very good. I recommend it. So there.
Thank you.
Our thought today comes from Masahiro Taniguchi, who is the founder of the Seicho Noe movement, founded in Japan, became big in Brazil. They're global now, of course. A big ally in the early days of that movement was Fenwick Holmes, who was the brother of Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes was a divine science minister who founded the religious science movement. His brother was a Congregationalist minister, Fenwick, who became a divine science minister, and then also was helpful in the early days of Seicho Noe. So it's sort of a rich history. A lot of people don't know about it. They have their own meditation technique, which is sort of really a treatment, and it's basically a New Thought movement, but whereas a lot of our New Thought movements in the West use the language of Christianity, that's a New Thought movement that uses a lot of the language of Buddhism.
Right.
So it's fascinating. So check out Seicho Noe if you're interested in any of that. So anyway, the founder Masahiro Taniguchi said, "What is important is how you perceive yourself. See and praise your perfect, real self." I'll say it one more time. Gene Rayburn on the Match Game always asks the question twice. Remember that? What is important is how you perceive yourself. See and praise your perfect, real self. What do you think he's talking about, Cindy Lippert?
It's vital that we understand how we're perceived. It's important as adults to be able to learn to accept constructive critique. I remember when I first started preaching, somebody would come through and say, "Oh, you were talking to me." And I'd say, "Really?" I don't know if you ever had that experience, but understanding that we are living the truth that we believe, the truth that we know, not just the truth that we think about, but the truth that is real for us. The reason that's important is lives are at stake. We are called upon right now to be allies of every kind. We are called upon right now to take what position and privilege we have, however great or small, and use that for good. We can only do that if we understand the love that we have to offer and the talent, and accept the compliment. Accept when somebody says to you, "You were talking to me," or you really saved my life, and believe that, because that's how they feel.
Yeah. I saw something just yesterday that Marilyn Monroe would sort of negotiate with clubs when Ella Fitzgerald was having a hard time getting booked in clubs as a main act because she was an African American woman. Marilyn Monroe would tell these clubs, if you'll book her, I'll come every night. So to get Marilyn Monroe in the front row in your club, that's and so she used her privilege. She was a popular box office star and a sex symbol, and she had a voice, and she was a friend of a president, and she had a lot of power and privilege, and she used that to benefit people who were being denied that. Mae West, she when she was doing Diamond Lil on Broadway, she'd written another play called The Drag, and it was about a drag ball, and and people would get arrested. The police would raid the show and shut down the play, and she would bail them out every night so they could go back on the next night. Like, that was her resistance, is they were doing her play, they were getting in trouble for it, so she took care of them. She would bail them out, she produced the show, and the curtain would go up the very next night. And so that was her little battle for a while. So yeah, we all have power. I mean, we all have privilege, and we all have peril. And so when we use our privilege to help someone else in peril, and accept help when someone uses what they've got going on to help us out through our peril, that's the way it's meant to be, I think. This is and maybe that's somehow connected to what Taniguchi's saying about know your real self. Your real self, if we're really united, if we're all part and parcel of one life, if we all share one divine life, then, and the Apostle Paul even said it this way, if one part of the body is hurting, the whole body suffers. And so, if we're really united, if we're one human body, if we're one universe, then we can't ignore the suffering of other people. We're all part of the same one real self, the one body. And so when we see injustice, when we see suffering, we are honestly called to respond to that.
You're being called.
No, I don't know what's happening.
I think it does tie, because we have to take ourselves seriously. I was raised with an idea self-praise stinks. So this false humility has shrouded my entire life. This response really serves no purpose. And it's not about a puffed up ego. It's really about knowing who you are, the privilege that you carry, and the position, and also the peril that you're in or someone else is in. I tell it all the time. I'm 70 years old now, so it's occurred to me, if I don't tell my stories, they might not get told. So I like to hear me talk about it. Anyway.
I mean, what have you got? 30, 35 years left? You better start telling your story.
You're just a kid. So anyway, but I want you to know this, and you may recall, I was the senior minister of a church in the Midwest, and I was speaking at International New Thought Alliance, and I was on the board of directors. So my congregation, many of them, I think there were about 28 that decided to go to Arizona and hear me speak before my peers. And this was a huge conference for those that don't understand. Anyway, I discovered that one of my favorite ministers, who happened to be African American, had been bumped from the program. And when I inquired about it, the administrative assistant made the mistake of telling me, I'd rather hear you than him. And I said, put him in my place. And she argued with me, and I said, people need to hear him. Knowing that my people were going to the conference and they were disappointed. They were mad at me, actually. There were plenty of other good speakers, but they were there to hear me. But I put him in because it wasn't a great thing, but it was the thing that I could do at that moment. And for me, I don't think we need to get wrapped up in, I can't do a thing because I'm not able to do a big enough thing. What little thing can you do?
I was seeing, I think this yesterday on social media, I think it was a minister encouraging people to do what they could. And it was so lovely. It was actually very helpful, I thought, because she was saying something about her health or whatever, that she was unable to join the protests. She didn't feel like she should be around so many people during right now, the pandemic. And so, but she was in favor of the protest. So she was providing bail money. There was a fund you could contribute to for people who got arrested for bail. So she said she was giving bail money. She was talking about the things that she could do. And she was telling people, maybe you can't organize a huge protest. Maybe you can't even join a protest. That doesn't mean you don't have anything to do. Do whatever you can. And don't compare it to what someone else is doing. Do what you can. That's how things get better, is when everyone does what they can. And we have that story in the gospel about the widow's mite. She gave less than anybody that day to the treasury. And yet, from what she had to give, she really gave more than anybody. She made more of a sacrifice. And so, you don't know the impact that your effort will have. So instead of judging it to be smaller compared to someone else's effort, do what you can. And when everyone does what they can, I think that's the miracle story of the loaves and fishes. I don't think Jesus magically made a piece of bread turn into 1,000 pieces of bread. I think he shared what he had, and people caught on and said, oh, I can do that. I can share what I have. And it just becomes this huge potluck, and there was enough. In fact, it says there was food left over. They were picking up the pieces, and there was food left over. I think that's the way sharing works. We share what we can, and then other people share what they can, and then it's enough, maybe even more than enough. So yeah, speak up for this person, raise this issue, write that letter, sign that petition, make that donation. Maybe it's not, throwing your body in front of rubber bullets, but do what you can. And when we all do what we can, the multitudes get fed, and there's even some left over.
Well, I'm happy to learn that my agency in Arizona, Ford Robert Black, has taken a stand for Black Lives Matter. So has Mitchell and Associates, who are my agents in New Mexico and in LA. I also have an agency, thanks to Tom Gretz, he's going to kill me. Paul, Reverend Paul. And that is Slam Management in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is a predominantly African-American agency. And the owner has had COVID. Every family member has. He has, I believe it's a father-in-law that died of it. And brother-in-law that was sick on a ventilator with it. So I feel very privileged to be part of a tribe of people in the film industry that are mindful about what's going on. We've talked about being good allies to the LGBT community for years. And I've learned over the years, what can I do? Not what is beyond me, but what can I do? And it's the same thing for the African-American community.
A disproportionate amount, in fact, of violence toward transgender people are transgender people of color, especially transgender women of color. These oppressions overlap. And so, and I love that Taniguchi says, what is important is how you perceive yourself. Do I perceive myself as an ally? Do I perceive myself as a loving person with a good heart that doesn't want people to be mistreated? Do I see myself as someone who can't be silent when children are in cages, or when trans women are in danger just for existing, or when an African-American person gets pulled over for a traffic violation and might not survive the event? Something that I, as a 53-year-old white man, it's never even crossed my mind that when I got stopped, I worry I might get a ticket. I worry this is going to cost me money or be unpleasant. I've never once thought to myself, I may not survive this. And so do I see myself as a good person? Because a good person cares that other people are suffering disproportionately and wants to do something. Maybe I can't run for Senate, and maybe I can't run for president. Maybe I can't run for governor. but maybe I can sign a petition. Maybe I can give money to someone who's running for those offices. Maybe I can write letters to the people who win those offices and tell them, okay, I voted for you, or not. You got in there anyway without my vote. I voted for the other lady, but still, you represent me, and I want you to do a thing. It's we can do what we can do. How do we see ourselves? Do we see ourselves as caring? Do we see ourselves as not being completely powerless? Our real self is divine. And I think that's why it's so important. That's why we say almost every week at Sunshine Cathedral, you are God's miracle and not God's mistake. There's not a spot where God is not. The past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. We say these things over and over and over because we want people to see themselves as part of a divine reality. Because if that's true, then there is enough love in us flowing through us to heal the world. And we're never really powerless. And there's always something we can do. And there's always some reason for hope. And so knowing who you are, knowing that you are part and parcel of God, if we can get that, I think we can take care of all the other things.
I absolutely concur. You and Robert are in a unique position as an interracial married couple. And that presents all kinds of opportunities. You're a living example of how it works. But I know that every day in different ways that I can't begin to know, you are presented with challenges. It's that idea where I'll just put it to you this way. I think apathy is the new sexy. Excuse me. Erase that. Empathy. I'm not quite awake. Empathy. Empathy is the new sexy. You like that? Well, I got your attention.
Apathy is the old ugly.
Apathy is the old ugly. Empathy is the new sexy.
Empathy is the new sexy.
There you go. I got your attention.
Exactly.
Okay, so it occurred to me the other day that empathy is the only thing that keeps us from eating each other. Literally.
Yeah. Well.
Without empathy, I have noticed that people that I meet that don't seem to have nary a drop of empathy, this is not my tribe.
Right. It's a different kind of human. Yeah. If you different. Can't. Yeah.
No.
And to know who you are, like if you know your sacred value, you're going to see it in others. Like I only need someone to be beneath me because I don't feel good enough.
Exactly.
And so to know your sacred value, you're going to see the sacred value in others. And if you see the sacred value in someone else, you're not going to let them just suffer or be mistreated or be ignored or be left out. And you're going to stand up for yourself too. You're going to, speak up for yourself. The film industry is famously, notoriously known for ageism, especially against women. And you were in your mid-60s when you took your first acting class.
Yep.
For women in film, they're told, start early, start pretty, because by 40 it's over. Maybe, right. And then, you just hold on to your 60 and then they start giving you little grandma parts or whatever. So and you didn't even start until historically the time when it would have been well over. Yeah. For women. So sometimes if they were super famous, maybe, they would break the mold. But you started, only 5 or 6 years ago, and
right.
and you're 70 now.
Right.
Turns out that there are modeling gigs that need silver hair. Turns out there are commercials that,
Well, there's films too, and they've done a study that it's only like 11% of all films have anybody over 60. Well, you can imagine of that number how many older women there are. Yeah.
And I like kids. I like seeing the kids in their 20s and 30s doing their thing. Yeah. I remember being bold young person and finding I love seeing that stuff. I also like seeing people who represent my statement of life and the time of life I'm trying to get to. I like seeing the various ranges of the world. I can't be the only one. I mean, the Golden Girls was a huge success for some reason, right? And it's time for that to not be the anomaly. Golden Girls needs to be a wave or whatever. But yeah, you wouldn't, if you didn't have some sense of who you are and some sense of that you were a person of power, no matter what anyone else had said, you wouldn't have even tried that. you wouldn't even turn your hat in the ring.
That's right.
And now you're an
That's
actor,
right.
model, and baking nary a cookie, just out there doing auditions and not doing grandma stuff at all.
Well, I've been making banana bread during the lockdown, so
Oh, that counts. That counts.
that counts. Put that on my resume. But no, that's you know, and it's true. I don't focus on what I can't do. I just focus on what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And during this lockdown, you know, my husband and I have formulated sagecoachingandcounseling.com, and we are available for a love offering or ability to pay or no pay at all, just to reach out and to give back, because that has kept us busy and that has kept us beyond worrying about ourselves.
Sage, by the way, Sage Coaching and Counseling, the professional coaches, life coaches, business coaches, therapeutic counseling, and spiritual direction, all available. They've got various professionals, social workers, psychologists, business people, ministers, all of that available. And so if you need some of that, some help in your life, and I mean, it's worth the fee. And yet right now those fees are more flexible because of the pandemic and the economy. And so sliding scale donations, they'll work it out. So if you need help, Reverend Cindy and her gang, which is a growing gang. I mean, I remember when you pitched this idea and you had 3 or 4 people, now you've got a dozen or so on the staff. So Sage Coaching and Counseling, they can help you out. And if you just want to read something, read one of the classics, but in new language, the complete works of H.M. Lee, Katie, by Cindy and Richard Lippert, available on Amazon. Well, just one more time, let's before we wrap up, I just want to give the Taniguchi quote one more time. It's taken us in a lot of directions, but I think things that are really true do. Things that are really true make you think about 1,000 other things.
Yes.
And that's kind of their power.
Yeah.
What is important is how you perceive yourself. See and praise your perfect, real self. It's just a thought, but I think it's a good one. Thanks, Cindy. Let's do it again next week.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.